The Duolingo rabbit hole continues, folks. So I have a couple major updates in this video, and also a couple things I want to share for those who are learning Chinese in Duolingo. Well, actually, the tip I'm going to be sharing later in this video can actually apply to most languages that you're learning on Duolingo. So first things first, I have a major update here. Since the last video, Duolingo they fixed my progress, actually. I mentioned in the first episode of this series that I completed the Chinese course, specifically in August of 2023, last year. And since then, Duolingo has added a lot of content to the Chinese course. And at some points, they kept on removing my progress and take me all the way back to section 2, basically, as you saw at the beginning of episode 1. Well, as you can see here, I am now at the daily refresh. You don't reach this section until you complete the course, actually. So every time when you complete a course in Duolingo, you just have this section right here where you go to practice your language every single day, basically. It gives you supposedly the hardest exercises in that language to keep those words memorized in your brain, basically. Because obviously, language learning never really stops, honestly. Like, for any language you're learning, you're never really going to stop learning it, technically, unless you're, especially if you're trying to go for true fluency. So this is what happens when you complete a course in Duolingo, is you have this section where you can practice daily, basically, to refresh your mind, basically, on the harder words in the course. But as you saw in the past 2 videos, Duolingo had pushed me way back to section 2, and I put myself back in section 3 in the first episode. But as you can see, take a look. Everything is now complete. All of these are champion or gold or whatever. And I'm going to tell you right now, there is no way I could have done all this in a single week. Not a chance. Because first of all, I don't have Super Duolingo anymore. And if you don't have Super Duolingo, you have to spend 100 gems every single time to make these gold, basically. So at some point in the past week, Duolingo, I don't know, were they watching my video or something? I'm very curious. If they saw my video, it's like, oh shoot, we gotta fix this person's progress because we effed it up. I'm actually really curious if that's what happened. But yeah, they actually fixed my progress, except for section 2 here. But as we go down here, as soon as we get to unit 7, that's where all the gold starts. So maybe, I'm guessing that's where they, up to that point is where they updated the course, basically. Did they change, add more words, before section 7 here? That's what I'm wondering about. So yeah, up to plan your weekend here. But the thing is, I know from the first episode or second episode, again, I always forget which one it was. I know if they added more words, and the only new word I saw in those episodes where I was practicing was just hi, which is not really a word necessarily in Chinese. It's just something that they're more likely to say than ni hao, at least in a casual, non-formal setting. And here in the character section is where I can sort of tell where they changed some things up. First of all, when I first started learning Chinese on Duolingo, the very first word they teach you when you are learning Chinese is ni hao, which is the Chinese word for hello, but it's more often it kind of depends on the person, whether they use it or not. It's often used, especially in formal settings, but it just depends on the person, whether they use that or not, or they'll just say hi to their friends. It just depends. But as you can see here, ni hao is not, well, they have ni, which is the word for you. But yeah, here in the Hanzi section where you can practice writing the Chinese characters, I can sort of see what characters are introduced in each lesson here. And on the mobile version, it actually separates them. It's on every single unit, it has them separated. It has the new characters on one side, and the characters that are brought back to be used in new words. Because a lot of Chinese words are made up of multiple characters. Most of the time, 2 characters, sometimes 3. A lot of times, it's nouns that have 3 or more characters. But most Chinese words are made up of 2 Chinese characters. So it looks like they probably teach ni hao in maybe unit 2, perhaps. I'm not sure, because this is where they introduce the word hao, which is the word for good. And generally, when people start learning a language in general, they want to know how many words are going to be taught in a single app. And I'm going to tell you right now. Okay, here we go. The Duolingo blog. So on Duolingo's blog, and apparently the course, I guess, was introduced in November 2017. That's very interesting, actually. And it's changed a lot since then, too, in the past 7 years, or nearly 7 years. But anyways, Our Chinese course teaches more than 1,000 words and nearly 1,000 characters. 1,000 characters and 1,000 words. So that's kind of interesting because with the practice Chinese characters section on Duolingo on the mobile app, we can actually see the official number of Chinese characters that Duolingo teaches. Well, not exactly because they don't actually give you the number, but you can kind of count yourself if you want to, if you're crazy enough like I was, by just counting the Chinese characters that are introduced in each unit. I went through and I counted every single new Chinese character that was taught in Duolingo. As you can see here, I listed every single one. I went all the way down and listed every single Chinese character that is introduced in each course. So in total, Duolingo teaches you 756 Chinese characters. 756. Not exactly the nearly 1,000 that they're claiming. If they could say like over 1,000 Chinese characters, that would still be fine too, because the thing is, the amount of Chinese characters that you know isn't really that important. It's not really essential, actually. Because, as I said before, a lot of Chinese characters are made up of multiple Chinese words. So 756 Chinese characters can still mean like thousands of words. That can literally make thousands of words. So really, the amount of Chinese characters you learn is not really relevant to your Chinese proficiency, basically. Now, obviously, native Chinese speakers are going to know thousands of Chinese characters. One friend I talked to recently said that they know 6,000 Chinese characters, and along with 8,000 English words, but they wanted to learn more English words. Less than 1,000 Chinese characters, you can still say a lot more words than that. It was just something, a nerd like myself just really gets curious about, I guess, and wanted to find out. So I was crazy enough to go through and research that, basically. But yeah, another reason why I can only recommend Duolingo Chinese is just a supplement, like just one little source for helping you learn Chinese a little bit, is because Duolingo Chinese is one of the smallest courses they have, I think still to this very day. To put things in perspective, I'm going to show you how many units. So every single Duolingo course is divided into sections. So here we have 3 sections for Duolingo Chinese and then Daily Refresh. I don't really count the Daily Refresh because it's not part of the main course. It's just something you get after you complete the entire course. But yeah, Duolingo Chinese has 3 sections, and each of those sections are divided into units. Section 1 has 10 units total. It used to be only 6 or 7, so I know they added more content here. Section 2 has a whopping 46 or 43, or 46 units total. So 46 units in Section 2, and Section 3 has 11. So in total, altogether, 一共, that is 67 units total. 67 units. The Duolingo Chinese course in total is 67 units. That's how big it is. At the time I completed the course back in August 2023, it was 57 units. So at some point they have added 10 sections. And what I believe happened was I think they broke up a bunch of Section 1's units, because as you can see, they are so much shorter than Section 2 and 3's units were, a lot shorter. And there's also more units in Section 2. I'm pretty certain of that. So that's probably where all the extra content is. I just can't tell for sure, honestly. So I probably have to redo the whole course. And I probably will at some point, especially if people want me to do that, like on screen here. I'll do that for YouTube videos. Just so people can have like a walkthrough of sorts or something. I don't know if people will be interested in that though, because I know that's a thing. People like practicing through an entire course on Duolingo. I've seen videos of that pop up in my algorithm for me, but those videos don't have a lot of views. I'm like, I don't think people want to see that. But let's stay on topic here. So 67 units is the Chinese course. What about the Japanese course, which is a more popular language that people are trying to learn? So obviously, that would be a course that Duolingo would want to emphasize more, because Japanese is a very popular language to learn, despite how hard it is. So let's jump over to the Japanese section real quick. And if we go back here, we can see the entire layout of the course. As you can see, the Japanese course is 5 sections. And look at that. Some of these sections have 80 units, 91 units, 35 units. Obviously, the Japanese course is significantly larger than the Chinese course. In fact, currently, as of the time of recording this video, the Japanese Duolingo course is 221 units. 221. Compare that to only 67 units that the Chinese course is. Okay, what about a Latin language that Duolingo is probably better at teaching at because Duolingo is based in the U.S. So therefore, so let's say we're trying to learn Spanish here. Let's check it out. Spanish. Spanish is the most popular course to learn on Duolingo, and it's probably the easiest course for Duolingo to work on because Spanish is the second most spoken language in the United States. Probably have a lot of native speakers available to properly design this course and make it more efficient for learning. So let's take a look at it real quick, just to see what it's like. I'm going to exit out of this real quick, because if you go through that, it's just going to have you do like the first lesson right away, just to kind of get you started. So we're starting section 1 here. We're going to back out of this, and we want to see like how big the Spanish course is. And here we have even more sections than the Japanese course. There are 8 sections here, not including the daily refresh that you do after you complete the course. And in total, across these 8 sections are 286 units. I counted it. So that's even more than the Japanese course. And Japanese, again, is also an extremely popular language to learn. So we can see that the more popular languages on Duolingo have between 200 and 300 units, basically. And the Chinese course is... Now, Duolingo itself has been around since 2017, I'm pretty sure. So the Chinese course was actually started at the same year that Duolingo itself was. And yet, despite that, it still remains one of their smallest courses ever. Still, to this very day, it's still stuck at only 67 units, while all these other popular languages so much larger. So it's kind of interesting thing to note, I guess. I'm not sure why that is. I guess Chinese is not as popular of a course to learn as Japanese and Spanish and a lot of other Latin languages. And I guess Japanese is the only East Asian language that a lot of people in the US are interested in just because of anime and video games and all that stuff, and I'm one of those people, obviously, because I'm trying to learn it as well. But still, I guess I'm kind of in the minority when it comes to learning Chinese in the US. Let's get into something more interesting here. I've been talking your head off for the past however many minutes here, like all about all this weird statistical crap you probably don't care about, but like I just want to point out this stuff because I just thought it was very interesting. But also, let's get into the meat potatoes of this video here. As you can see, I am learning Chinese and Japanese. Those are 2 languages I want to focus on. So I completed the Chinese course, and I could do Japanese, but again, I don't think the way Duolingo teaches languages works for Japanese. It's just that language is a lot more... It requires a lot of input and a lot of context-based learning. And the thing is, I've watched a lot of YouTubers like try out the Japanese course, and especially native speakers from Japan itself. And one of the major failures with Duolingo is that they use these robot voices to teach the languages as far as like speaking goes, but they often get the pronunciation wrong. Yeah, the problem comes like when they have like kanji characters like this. A lot of kanji characters in Japanese, the pronunciation is different depending on what context the kanji is in. Like kanji character by itself will have a different pronunciation depending on from... Let's say it's in a sentence or something. A lot of kanji characters are just so complicated as far as as that goes, and Duolingo often gets the pronunciation wrong. Like they pronounce the characters wrong in the sentences that they're in, and they often put them in sentences without pronouncing them correctly. So, in fact, right here I can already see a goof up like on just the section screen here. Like this, the furigan is like over the wrong character. It's over this, like which is ri, but wa is supposed to be over this character, wakarimasu. As in to understand, but they put it over. Why'd they keep on putting the furigan like over the wrong characters? Like they do it right here too. Hana is supposed to be over this. Like I guess I'm just kind of nitpicking at this point, but like still, it's just kind of my point is that Japanese is a language that cannot be really translated to English very well. Like you're not going to learn Japanese by constantly translating it to English. You have to learn it in context, basically. You need a lot of input to learn this language properly. Especially, and I can tell you this from my own experience because I tried using Duolingo a lot and it wasn't very helpful to me. You can see like I'm all the way back in section 3, but that's also because like at some point I was much further along. Like I had skipped ahead with help from a friend and tried learning like I want to learn the more advanced stuff. Like I'd rather learn longer sentences and translate them, like as I mentioned before in the earlier episode. Anyways, my point is, I can't tell you what to do, what not to do. Duolingo Japanese might actually work better for some people, so I cannot discount that fact. And so it's just it doesn't work necessarily for me, but maybe it does for other people. But either way, that's my point. I'm learning these 2 languages, but at some point after I completed the Chinese course, I was very underwhelmed by the Chinese course because of how small it was. It was only 57 units at that time. And it didn't really teach me a lot of words, not as many words as I was hoping to learn, like as I got that far into the course, basically. So I got kind of curious. You're going to add a new course here, and these are the courses available for English speakers. As you can see here, we got all these different choices here, and we have the most choices because the fact that Duolingo is based in the United States, so it's easier to teach languages to English speakers than other speakers. But nevertheless, they have other options. Like I mentioned before, I have native Chinese and Japanese friends on VR chat, and they are also using Duolingo to learn English. So that got me kind of thinking, what is the English course for Chinese and Japanese speakers like on Duolingo? I actually got curious. So if we go up here, where it says I speak English, you can change that to other languages down here. And all the way at the bottom, we have Zhongwen and Nihongo. So let's switch this to Chinese real quick. And as you can see, we have language courses now for Chinese speakers. We have English, Japanese, and even a dialect of Chinese, Cantonese, can be learned on here. But as you can see, English is the most popular language for Chinese speakers on Duolingo. And, oh, wow. That's a lot of learners. Holy crap. For those of you who don't know, and I said this in an earlier episode, but this character right here means 10,000. So it's not 1,330. It's whatever this number is, 1330, we need to add 4 zeros to it. So if my math is correct, I might be wrong with my math here, but if my math is correct, this is actually 13 million. 13.3 million learners, not 1.3 thousand. So as you can see, it's very popular to learn English in mainland China. So let's take a look at the English course for Chinese speakers, shall we? Now, I know I can see why a lot of people don't do this or don't think to do this because this will actually change app's UI to Chinese. So that's where a lot of people might get scared. But the thing is, if you completed the Chinese course for English speakers, you might know enough words to the point where you can actually confidently get through this. Like, for instance, 你的英语怎么样? It's saying, how is your English here? And we can assume these are different levels of English. So obviously, this would be the first time. 我是第一次学英语. So I'm first time learning English. And then right here, I don't know some of these words, like this one right here. I don't know this character. But the rest of these, I can kind of get what it means. Like I can speak a lot of English, basically. I can talk a lot, talk many words, basically. Or you can kind of infer like what it means, sort of, a little bit. We're going to start with the very first one, see what it's like here. 没问题，咱们从头开始. So here it's saying, no problem, we can start from the beginning. So let's do that. 来看看我们该从哪开始吧. Here it's asking where do we want to start, basically. We can start from very first lesson, which we'll go ahead and do this time. 从学习课离岁. So we'll go ahead and pick this one. So here it's saying, which is English 呢? 哪个是英语呢? If you did the Chinese course, then you would know 哪个 means which or where or what is, you basically know like all these words here, so you get the idea of what it's trying to say, and you can also infer this means new word. So, and obviously, English is
English.
英语 is English. And there you go, we got that correct.
English, Chinese.
Now, the first thing I found so jarring when I first did this course was hearing the characters talk in English. Like seriously, hearing the Duolingo characters speaking English is one of the biggest mind blows for me. Like just doing this English course here for Chinese speakers, it's very interesting. But this is what it's like for any English course on Duolingo. It's just very weird for us English speakers. Here it's saying we can highlight the word to identify its meaning in Chinese.
English.
So here it shows the Chinese words 英文、英语、英国的
Chinese.
中文、中国、中国人. So English, Chinese. I have all the animations and the motivational messages, all those turned off just because it's just to kind of streamline this a little more. But yeah, my point is that if you took the Chinese course, then you obviously are going to know what a lot of these words are. You're going to know what all of these words are, for example. And you can basically determine on your own, 用中文写出这句话. So use Chinese, write out the sentence. And there you go. So potentially, you could learn significantly more Chinese words from taking the English course for Chinese speakers than you did from taking just the Chinese course for English learners. And that was that's what got me interested in trying out the English course for Chinese learners. it's very interesting. Here it's saying 其他. I think the Chinese course now teaches it. This means other, and you can infer this means correct answer. You can learn a lot of words this way. The problem is the only downside to this method is that you have to highlight the words that you don't know, and then consult your handy dandy translator like Google or whatever, and you can determine what they mean. And you can learn 其他正确答案. So you learn 答案 means answer, and 正确 means correct. So yeah, it's not the most efficient way to learn characters. In fact, I'm sure a lot of teachers would not recommend this, but still, I just found it very interesting. Like, this could be a way to learn more words. Maybe not a lot of words. Like, you're probably not going to remember, obviously, all of these because you have to constantly look them up on the Google Translate, which is not a great way to learn words, I will admit, but still, it's just very interesting. And you could at least get something out of this. You can learn a lot of UI elements from this as well. Like, if you don't understand what this is, you can, again, highlight it, copy it into the translator, and there you go. Now, one positive thing I will say about, well, actually, it doesn't do it. I'm pretty sure this is a complete word, 句话, sentence. A lot of times, Google Translate will space out separate words in the pinging. So, for instance, 中文 is a complete word, even though it's made out of 2 Chinese characters. So they put it together here. But 用 is a single word, use. So they put that separately. So that's one thing I will say is actually kind of helpful with Google Translate when it comes to translating Chinese characters. Again, I don't recommend using exclusively Google Translate for learning Chinese characters, but still, it's just one resource in particular, and you could potentially learn a lot of words on your own, basically, through this method, basically.
Chinese.
Again, I am not a teacher. I am not a native Chinese speaker. So I cannot tell you what works best for you. In fact, actually, even a teacher can't really tell you what works best for you. But especially here, I cannot say that this is an efficient way to learn words or not. But I think it's just another interesting method you could try out if you still want to get more out of Duolingo after you've already completed the course, especially with a tiny course like Chinese. But you have to assume, this course was made for native Chinese speakers. So at the very least, if you do learn the words that are in the UI here, then your friends will at least understand you, but they can actually correct you and tell you what the more native way of saying this is. Because I'm pretty sure if you learn how to speak specifically from the UI on Duolingo, you're probably still going to sound like a robot. And, it's not going to sound very native. It's going to sound kind of weird. So your friends, if you have native friends like I do, they can correct you and let you know, hey, this is the more native way to say this. So yeah, just very interesting. So let's go ahead and try this for a little bit. So I like English. So if we look over, so obviously these are also, obviously these more simple, so especially like the earlier lessons, you're likely going to know how to say these in Chinese, like all these words. So you're not going to have any issue with these particular early lessons either. But yeah, again, you'll learn this means correct because it's it's obviously, it's like, you could say sort of like this is a method of immersion, sort of like learning your own language from your target language, sort of, because you still understand at least one of the languages, and and at this point you understand the target language just enough that you could probably learn more words through this method as well. So we can infer that this means choose, right? Because we know already this one's correct, and this is answer. So this has to be choose, right? Because we have to choose the option here. So let's go ahead and copy and paste this over to Google Translate, and we get choose. Exactly. 选择. I will admit it's possible that the pinyin could be wrong. That's something to consider. But luckily for me, since I happen to have native friends, I could actually verify with them if this is correct or not. So, but still, this is kind of it's another way to learn. You could potentially learn words. Basically, it's just through process of elimination here, and also like just understanding the context of what the word is. Like obviously this has to mean quit, right? If I click on this, and this one has to mean check answer. So, you can learn a lot of words just this way, like through immersion, sort of.
I like Chinese.
我喜欢中文.
I like you.
Oh. Okay, lady. Little forward there. Just a tiny bit forward. It's kind of interesting that this is the first sentence that they're teaching Chinese speakers, is to say I like you. You don't say this to someone unless you have a crush on them. I just want to point that out. And even then, it's kind of weird to be like, it's still a little forward even to say it like that. So I don't know. I mean, there are limited contexts. You could say "I like you," someone who you don't have a crush on, but a very extremely limited number of scenarios there. But yeah, the biggest downside to this method is that you have to do
You,
all the speaking practice on your own because the characters are only going to be speaking English, which is not helpful for an English speaker. So you have to practice speaking the Chinese words out loud on your own. So,
You like English.
你喜欢英文. Yeah, these are all characters. Like these are all words that were taught to you in the Chinese course. So you would definitely know these by now if you completed the course. And then we have this okay, come on. I had them turned off. I don't know why it still has them, but this is a motivational message. I had these turned off, but nevertheless, we can still copy and paste this to find out what it means in the translator. I apologize for bringing this up. Wow, not bad. Want to play something exciting? So that's not exactly what it's saying. What it's really saying, and I can tell you from the context here. It's actually saying, would you like to try a harder sentence? Actually, so Google Translate's not exactly correct here. I mean, technically it is from a literal standpoint, but from a contextual standpoint, it's actually going to introduce harder questions here, basically. But here we can still learn that I kind of means wow, but I'm pretty sure that's not what native speakers say. They don't say that because I've seen native speakers like say wow in WeChat, and it's not like this at all. So that's definitely not. It's probably more like a formal way of saying it. I'm not sure. 你喜欢中文. Another thing to consider is that Google Translate might be actually fine for translating individual words, not sentences. So that's also another thing to consider. So there we go. We got perfect. So here we can infer that this means perfect, right? 完美. Well, let's check and see. Let's see if I'm correct, right? So go to Google Translate. Whoops. There we go. 完美. Perfect. But again, if you have native friends, I highly recommend checking with them to verify that a word is actually correct, because it might not be the native way to say it. So you have to keep that in mind. There we go. We got gems. Yeah, the whole thing. But yeah, again, the whole UI is going to be in Chinese. But again, this is a way to learn a lot of words. So you can check and see what this means. It means conjunctions into sentences. Conjunctions into sentence. So you learn the word conjunction. But here we have only two Chinese words. So maybe into is implied. So you can assume that into is implied rather than in there. So we have 连词 and 成绩. Or actually, okay, I'm mistaken. I'm pretty sure 成 is its own word. That is like change to or something like that. Because 句 is sentence, and 连词 could mean conjunction. So yeah, I'd recommend just to be skeptical, like using Google Translate, because it could be wrong. But as you can see, like we have all these new words that we can possibly learn. I mean, of course, you can't really highlight the buttons, unfortunately. So that's where it gets kind of complicated. But as you can see, there is a section here for pronunciation. 一起来学英文发音 pronunciation. So here we have the word for vowels. So we copy that. 元音. So we have the word 元音, and then the word for consonants. I believe that is, because these are actually consonants. 辅音 for consonants. So you can learn a lot of words just by doing this. It's just kind of my whole point here is I just want to, kind of show this. Now, let's try. How about we try jumping ahead to section 2, shall we? So here we have a new word. This is a sandwich, I believe. No, this is okay. My mistake. This is actually cheese, I believe. 芝士, cheese. I don't know if the Chinese course teaches it now. When I used to take the Chinese course, it did not teach the word for sandwich, so I learned it here from the English course for Chinese speakers, which is a 三明治. But camera was taught in the Chinese course, and it was 照相机.
cheese.
Cheese is not taught in the Chinese course, at least when I took it. So I learned that word here as well, and it's 芝士.
Good morning. A coffee, please.
早上好，一杯咖啡，谢谢. I mean, so we don't have please here, but I guess in in mainland China, please here would be 谢谢. But they're trying to translate it into English instead of like using a native Chinese sentence, because I'm not sure if they would say 谢谢actually in mainland China, but maybe. I mean, like I would, because I'm a very polite person myself. But yeah, here we got the word for 三明治, and then 下午, afternoon, 您, which is a formal way of saying you, and then we have cheese here. So, but obviously a coffee, you would know if you took the Chinese course, it would mean a 一杯 cafe rather than just cafe. So, 下午, afternoon.
Would you like a tea or a coffee?
I'm going to turn them down in editing, but it's really distracting for me, like doing it now, like hearing the voices as I'm trying to do this. But yeah, like this sentence you would learn in, well, yeah, they teach nin like much later in the course, but you would know that too. So you can figure out how to make the sentence if you know, like based on what you learned in the Chinese course. Like obviously you probably wouldn't be skipping around like I am now for this video. So you would already know what all these words mean too. So 您想要一杯茶还是一杯咖啡? Have a nice day. So in the English course, they have a lot of these types of exercises, which were not in the Chinese course, at least last I remember. I don't recall ever getting exercise like this in the Chinese course. But here in the English course, they do this a lot, where they have you complete a sentence basically as a way to teach grammar, sort of. But we'll get into that later. But yeah, these are pretty obvious. Like these are super easy for English, for people who are already fluent in English. So you don't really get much out of these, but you could also still learn from the UI itself. Like here, 你太极了, 意思是祝您. But still here it would teach you the Chinese translation, and theoretically this would be a lot more native, this would be a lot more native way to say it, because it's intended for Chinese speakers to read this rather than English speakers. So we could infer this is probably close to how they would say it natively in Chinese. Not exactly, probably a bit more robotic, but still, it's and you can assume this one would mean something along the lines of report error, because that's what it is in the English version. So yeah. Okay, so salad is shala, ifen shala, a salad. This word was also not taught in the Chinese course, if I remember correctly, but again, I could be wrong. 你想要一份沙拉吗？谢谢，祝你好. Okay, this one's a little harder for me because I haven't done this in a long time. Like I didn't really get that far into the English English course for Chinese speakers, but I got far enough to say, hey, this might actually be useful for me, like more so than the Chinese course, because I'm going to show you, after this exercise, I'm going to show you just how big the English course is for Chinese speakers, because yeah, it's pretty big compared to the actual Chinese course for English speakers. So I believe it's this word right here. I don't know how to highlight these. 祝您过好的一天. Okay, so I missed. So I could have used this word instead of how there, but still works. So yeah, it's still correct. It's still showing me another correct answer here. So that's still net positive for me, I guess. Hi, 早上好. And here's the word that they are teaching in the Chinese course now, but here it is showing up in the English for Chinese Chinese speakers now. Hi, 早上好.
Morning.
一杯茶还是一杯咖啡? Tea or a coffee. 一份鸡肉沙拉，谢谢. So you know from the Chinese course means chicken. This would have to mean a, and then a measure word, which I believe is now taught in the newer courses, because I'm pretty sure I saw this one show up in when I was counting all the Chinese characters. So this one is now in the Chinese course, but I'm pretty sure they didn't teach a lot of measure words like when I did the Chinese course back in the day. Okay, here we go. 用英语写咖啡. So you have ones like this where you have to type it out. Again, it's very easy super easy. And if you don't know what this means, if you don't know what this means, you can tell by looking at the picture. 下午, so this means afternoon. tea, thanks. What? Okay, so a bit of an inconsistency here. In all the other instances in this exercise that where it had sense like this, it would they were literally saying a tea, not a cup of tea, just a tea. I mean, a cup of tea would be accurate. We're more likely to say a cup of tea in English. Probably it just depends on the person, though. But saying a tea would perfectly suffice for a cup of tea either way. So this should be correct. I don't know why they said I was wrong here, because even though it's not an exact translation, it's an accurate translation, because we would say it like that too. Like if they want me to be specific and say a cup of tea just because it's Duolingo and they tend to be very strict about these sorts of things, then why in the earlier exercise were they not being strict about it and saying a tea and a coffee? You saw that in earlier exercises, so it's kind of inconsistency there. A salad or a sandwich. 三明治. 三明治. A salad or a sandwich. I spelled sandwich wrong, I guess. Okay, whatever. We still got it, though. So there we go. We got to skip to Unit 2. But let's see how big the English course for Chinese speakers is, and compare that to the Chinese course for English speakers, which again, that was 67 units. So the English course for Chinese speakers it's 290 units total across 8 sections. This is literally bigger than all the other courses that I shared with you. The Spanish course, the Japanese course. It's bigger than those two, which are more popular languages for English speakers. So you have to imagine there's a lot of Chinese words you could learn just through doing this course. You could learn probably a lot more Chinese words through this course than you did in the actual Chinese course for English speakers. That's what's most insane. That's what I find most insane about this. It's just something I find very interesting, that you could potentially learn a lot of Chinese words through this, especially UI words like that you see on web pages, you know? So give it a try for yourself. See if it works for you. I cannot say whether or not it will, because again, everyone learns differently, and I don't even know if this is a good way for me to learn Chinese words. Theoretically, it is if I stuck to it enough, but I don't think I would be able to, because, you know, it's like I could literally skip all the way to the end of this course. In fact, I'm going to try it. So let's do it. Duolingo is by the way, it's a Chinese name for Duolingo's Duolingo. So let's try and skip to the very last section, shall we? The superhero movies are boring. It's the same story over and over again. It seems like the further you get into the English course for Chinese speakers, you get more and more exercises like this, which are even easier for English speakers. It's literally, there's hardly any Chinese at all. It's literally all English, so it becomes even more easy the further you get into it. So I'm just going to skip to the end of this. I'll let you know if I run into any that are actually kind of interesting. But literally, most of these I think are just complete sentences. So yeah, very easy. I stupidly got one wrong, but still, I'm able to skip all the way to the end of the course, and yeah, we still got this. Oops, yes, yeah. And here we are at the very end of the course. Well, not the very end. We still got this whole section, which is literally just, I'm pretty sure again, this is just the practice section. They don't have any new content in here. But you get the idea at this point. If I try to skip all the way to the very end here, it's going to be another one just like that. The one I just took is too easy. So one more thing I want to show in this course is a story, because Duolingo English for Chinese speakers has stories. And I'm pretty certain, I'm really certain that they actually use the same stories across all the different language courses, because I've seen some of these stories pop up in the Japanese course. The Chinese course doesn't have any of these stories for some reason. I don't know why, because all they do is they just translate them to language. But still, let's go ahead and check out one of the random stories here. So here we have section 1 or unit 1 of section 7, and we'll try this story here. 我的钱, see, I don't know this word, so I look it up real quick. And we can say 规则 means rule. So we can infer this means my money, my rules. See, I just learned a new word right through here. 规则.
My money, my rules.
Of course, it's say in English here too, but also you can hover the words, you can see the translation there. And of course, unfortunately, we can't really hover over it to find out. what the meaning is there, but we can still
Junior
continue
and
on
Eddie
here.
are shopping at a local mall when Junior spots a video game on a shelf and runs to grab it.
Again, it's so weird, like hearing it in English. But again, we can hover over the words and we can see what they are in Chinese. It's kind of amusing, like listening to one of these stories. But again, it's like it's meant to be for learning English. So like yeah. Now I could have swore it lets you highlight the Chinese words so you can kind of look up what those are. But like obviously it doesn't intend for you to do that. But still, at least if you know already the meaning for these words, then you can kind of determine, oh, okay, so this is how this word's used. I don't know how to pronounce the word for zombie, but you can learn, 很可怕，而且它, and then the word for hate, which I also haven't learned yet, but like I still have to, yeah, it doesn't let me highlight it, unfortunately. So that's the downside to this.
Who are these experts?
Experts, 考家，这些. And also the grammars. Grammar is another thing to consider here. I'm pretty sure in Chinese it would be 这些考家是谁. I'm pretty sure this would be backwards in Chinese.
My friend Davy, he's 12.
No, Junior. You have too many video games.
You're being unreasonable.
I know we're getting kind of off topic here, but I kind of have to agree with Junior. He's kind of being unreasonable here. Like, you should really consider these experts. What? Wait a second here. Okay, watch what happens when I highlight it. It gives you the answer when you highlight it. What the hell? Is that part of the... What? Okay, well, that's a big flaw right there. You can literally just highlight it and it gives you the answer. That's very interesting. Does it work on other languages too in the stories? What the hell? Wow. Okay, but seriously, Eddie, you need to invest in some being chilling. You need to be more chill, Okay, I'm sorry. I had to say that meme at some point. Okay, so here we have a new set of words. We have we know 句子 sentence. 听到 heard. This word 虫子 虫子. So it's 虫子听到的句子. This word is like a reorganization, sort of. So, but you can infer, like, based on the context, what this word means, rather than consulting Google Translate if you already know all these other words. So it's kind of the point that I'm getting at here, basically.
You said I was allowed to buy it if I made my own money.
I did?
I made $100 from my dog walking business, so I bought the game myself.
Sure showed him.
Junior continues playing.
Don't the graphics look cool, Dad?
Yeah. I see why you wanted this game. Can I play?
No, you can play the game when you buy it with your own money.
Damn.
Junior, can I borrow some cash?
I don't remember the stories being this long, like in the Japanese stories I've read. Maybe they get longer as you progress further. Okay, so wasn't there, like, I remember there also being a section where you had to, like, pick a, like, where it tests you, like, on the vocabulary, like, where you had to match it all. So I guess that goes away later in the course as well. Wow. Okay, so at this point, I've made my point very clear here. So this is just another option for a lot of people who are using Duolingo to learn a language. If you ever get, like, especially, I guess this could only be useful, like, if you've already reached the end of the course that you're learning. So this probably only applies to, like, the very small courses like Chinese, where you can actually complete within, like, a year or two. But, like, maybe for the other courses like Japanese and Spanish, it would take forever to clear those courses. And by then, you'd probably already be fluent because you probably found better sources to help you learn the language more efficiently. But still, I wanted to show this, like, just as an option for anyone else who's learning these languages, because we're not done here. So I've shown that we can learn English from Chinese, and obviously I'm learning both Chinese and Japanese. So can we do the same for Japanese? Yes, we can. So if we go into, once again, add new courses, I speak 我说 Nihongo. So Japanese people have less options. They have English, Korean, Chinese, and French. But still, as you can see, we can learn English from Japanese as well. Again, I'm going to skip this part. I just want to show you, like, I'm not going to do any exercises, but I mean, I guess we could do the first one just for the hell of it, just see like what the first words that Duolingo teaches Japanese speakers. That'd be kind of interesting. But I just want to see how big the English, like, compare the size of the courses actually. So the English course for Japanese speakers is 293 units. It's 3 more units than the English course for Chinese speakers. And just like in Chinese, they have the same pronunciation courses too. So yeah, it's just something very interesting to see basically. But let's go ahead and check out the first one, see what it is. Yeah, we're just gonna say we don't know anything about English. And I will say my Japanese is even worse than my Chinese. Like, I understand even less Japanese than I do Chinese, but still, let's go ahead and start at the beginning here. But I do know that kohi is coffee, obviously. So the first word that Duolingo teaches Japanese speakers for English is coffee, a word that they probably already knew because that's one of their loan words from English. So they probably already knew this, but at least this maybe helps them with pronunciation, maybe.
Coffee.
I guess so. You could learn how to pronounce it this way, I suppose. Okay, so I know from Chinese this means tea, so that's pretty obvious. Tea, to, kohi, I, kanji. So I know this, I means good, and kanji. So I means good, and kanji here means feeling. So like it's a good feeling, sorta. Theoretically, you could probably learn Japanese better this way, like taking the English course for Japanese speakers, than you would doing the Japanese course for English speakers, because for one, it's about the same size, so they probably have about the same amount of words. Like, not the same words, but same amount of words. Here, we're seeing the words in context, I kanji, rather than like trying to, and Duolingo's method of translating everything to English. Instead, it's actually showing us the words naturally, I kanji. So from what I can see here, it looks like we'd actually learn Japanese better this way than in the Japanese course for English speakers. I can't say it for sure because I'm not an expert on Japanese. I'm not a language expert by any stretch of the imagination, but still, it just seems like this would be technically a better way. Technically, but again, everyone's different. Everyone learns differently, so it's just kind of, yeah, I don't know. Konnichiwa, irashai. Konnichiwa, irashai. See, I got that wrong because I don't know Japanese enough. Like, I would actually find this course challenging because of the fact that I don't know Japanese enough. But still, it's just kind of interesting. Like, they still have very basic words. Yatta ne. I can assume that this is good or whatever.
Hello.
Something along those lines. But technically, I still wouldn't know like how to use the word technically. But I can at least infer like kind of what the meaning is basically. So Japanese people are learning coffee and tea and hello and welcome as their first English words here. So just kind of interesting thing to see, I guess. So there we go. I just wanted to show that real quick, just out of curiosity. I wanted to see like what the first words they learn in Japanese are. So we're not going to go too far into that. I'm not going to try and test out of it. So there you have it, folks, the English course for Japanese speakers. If you're an English speaker like me, but you're actually good at Japanese, then I could recommend at least checking this course out to see if, like how good your Japanese is, if you can understand like UI elements and whatnot. So I don't know, it's just kind of interesting, just very interesting to check out, basically. But let's take this a step further. As someone who is learning Japanese and Chinese, one of the things I like to do, or try to do sometimes, is actually translate between Chinese and Japanese without translating something to English. For me, it's always kind of interesting. Like, whenever I try to do that, it's a fun challenge for myself, basically. So, and as we saw, you can learn Japanese from Chinese and Chinese from Japanese on Duolingo. So essentially, as I'm trying to learn these two languages, 2 courses quickly became 6 courses, basically, on Duolingo that I can do, basically, even though I'm only learning 2 languages. So now I'm going to challenge myself just a little bit here, just a little bit, and I'm going to try to translate between Chinese and Japanese for the rest of this course. So, ni hao. So we got the pinyin for ni hao, and theoretically I could probably still learn some Japanese and Chinese, like just through the different different levels. Like if I know a word in Chinese, then I would learn the word in Japanese, and so on, and vice versa. But of course, I know a lot more Chinese, so therefore I could learn a lot of Japanese probably just by doing this as well, like just only sticking to between the two languages rather than having any English in there.
好，
How? So here I can tell they're testing pronunciation, and then Mao or Neko in this case for Japanese, and then becomes
猫
Mao in Chinese.
狗
Go.
猫
Mao. I think this word onaji means the same. Bit. Pair. Pair. Kudasai means please. So yeah, it's telling me to match the pairs here. So how?
好，你好，
Go.
狗
So the first words they teach for Japanese speakers in Chinese are cat, dog, and hello and good, basically. Neko. Neko ne. Okay, there's one other point I wanted to talk about with learning
狗
Chinese, and this kind of expands on what I was saying earlier about how you can know thousands of words just from 750 Chinese characters, basically. And my point is the word ni hao, if it'll show up here. But yeah, go inu.
你好,
Okay, so this word right here, ni hao, is a good example of how you could know a lot of Chinese characters, but a lot more words potentially if you actually learn the words, sort of. So ni hao is a single Chinese word. It means hello. It's the official Chinese word for hello. Even though a lot more often, I think Chinese people are more likely to say hi to their friends that they know personally. But ni hao is made up of two Chinese characters alone, and those two Chinese characters are also words on their own. They have
你
ni, which means you,
好,
and hao, which is good. So you could look at this and say, oh, I know one Chinese word, ni hao, but in reality, you just learned three Chinese words. Three. Right here, alone. That's three words right there. And that's my whole point. That's how, just by knowing 750 Chinese characters, that could still be over 1,000 actual words that you know. So if you're looking at yourself like only as how many Chinese characters you know, and you know like around 500 or so, you could still know, theoretically, you could still know like over 1,000 or even 2,000 Chinese words just by knowing 500 Chinese characters, theoretically. But this is just kind of speculation on my part, but I'm pretty sure it's just how it is because of the fact that so many Chinese words are made up of multiple characters. So that's just the whole point I'm trying to get at here, basically. Okay, so ni hao, konnichiwa.
你好, 猫,
I mean, yeah, theoretically, you'd say hi to a cat. I definitely would. But, like, I mean, I would just say, hey, kitty, kitty, or something like that.
Yes.
Mao,
猫
echo. 你
你好，你好，好
But yeah,
Mao
for me, like doing these courses like between Chinese and Japanese are actually a lot more fun and challenging for me because it's literally between the two languages I'm trying to learn. So I'm practicing one language while also developing another language at the same time. And it's a lot more challenging for my brain because there's no English involved here. So I don't know, it's just kind of interesting. It's a lot of fun to learn these two languages this way. Okay, so let's see how big the Chinese course is for Japanese learners. It's actually quite small. It's only 2 sections here, and it appears to be a total of 60 units. Just 60. So it's even smaller than the Chinese course for English learners, actually. So yeah, Japanese people, as far as learning Chinese, yeah, Duolingo's not very helpful for them. But for me, it's actually a nice challenge to kind of be translating only between Japanese and Chinese, basically. So let's check out the Japanese course for Chinese learners and see how big it is, because Japanese is actually because even in China, there's a lot of people there that actually like Japanese. So we say we speak Chinese, and we can go into Japanese. As you can see, there are 486 plus 4 zeros, so 4.8 million people in China are learning Japanese via Duolingo. So there's at least that many people in China that are interested in Japanese. And not only that, but when I visited Japan like earlier this year in March, late March, early April, I saw a lot of Chinese tourists. In fact, Chinese people actually make up the vast majority of tourists in Japan. There's a lot of people in China who love anime and are really fond of Japanese culture. There's also a lot of people who don't like Japanese culture. So I've met people from China who really hate Japan, want nothing to do with it, and they actually look down at people who like Japan, versus people in China who actually love Japanese and are all about the culture, just like a lot of people around the world are, basically. So I just find that very interesting, actually. Okay, so yeah, we're learning Japanese here as Chinese. So 你的日语怎么样？我是第一次学日语。Although I think this is more accurate for me. 我知道一些通用。好呀。那咱们 okay, this word I'm not sure on, so I'll look it up real quick. Pull, draw, drag. So it's like pull, draw, drag. So, okay, then we will together. Okay, so here, I mean, to be fair, again, I say that Google Translate's not that reliable, but still, like, if it's correct, it's saying we can, okay, we will hold hands and advance and together advance. So, okay, yeah. That's kind of an interesting way to say it, but I mean, it's not meant to be translated to English, so it's meant for Chinese speakers, so keep that in mind. Nevertheless, we'll still start from the beginning because I'm still curious to see like the first course, and maybe I'll go a little more advanced here because again, like Chinese, I like to challenge myself this way. But yeah, we'll start with the first one again. So E. So they start off with pronouncing hiragana and katakana, obviously, or whatever. Here we have to match them. So I know hiragana, so this part's easy for me. E.
Ni.
So yeah, maybe this might be too easy for me, actually, like doing the first course. Okay, so start by learning numbers. You start with 1, 2, and a little bit of hiragana, basically. So that's all it is, the first course. The first one, I mean. So once again, we see this again, which reminds us this means harder exercises. Ichi, ni.
Ni.
Ichi. So there we go. All right, so that was the first one. That one was, it's only numbers. It's just 1, 2. That's all they teach the Chinese speakers who are learning Japanese. And how big is now, finally, let's see how big the Japanese course is for Chinese speakers. Okay, so it's decent size. It's 110 units total, but it's divided into 3 units. So yeah, it's a decent sized course. So essentially, Chinese speakers have a slightly better resource for learning Japanese on Duolingo than Japanese people do for learning Chinese. So that's very interesting. So I want to try a slightly harder lesson. Maybe still in section 1, but I want to jump to. Let's try jumping to, let's say this one, for example, just a random one. So we got a slightly harder one here. 几点?
何時?
何時?
2.
2. 0. 0.
3.
3. Still pretty easy. 8. 8 is 8, I do believe.
8. 6.
Yeah. 6. 6. 6. 5.
5. 7.
5. 7. 7. Well, don't sound it out for me. That's too easy. 今 now.
今 5.
现在. 今现在. See, I should be translating it to Chinese, not to English like I keep trying to.
1.
When do they start translating sentences? Because like these are all like just single words basically. That's very interesting. Like when do they start doing sentences? Do they not do it in the whole first section? It's 4 o'clock. 4点. 是4点. 是3点吗? Japanese. 3時ですか? So like these are okay, so these are sentences, but like these are hardly sentences at all. It's just asking what time it is basically. Or confirming the time basically. That's all it is. 是7点 Ling San Fen. Okay, so these are more exact time, but again, it's just confirming what the time is. I love how one of the options is America. That's hilarious. Or John. These are just names. It's kind of funny. Chichiji des. Wait. Chichiji
3分
sanpun
des.
desu. That one I actually didn't know in Japanese, but I was able to put it together through a process of elimination. So yeah, it's saying it's 7:03 o'clock basic, or 7:03 essentially time.
1と2です。
It's 1 and 2. 11和2是9:08分。现在2点 oh 2点 yeah, that's right. They would say 2点, not 2点. That's right. 现在2点 oh, it's 正好. But since it's 今は2時ちょっと Okay, so checking Google Translate, it says precisely. It is precisely 2 o'clock right now. So I know that this word now in Japanese, choto, but I also know in Chinese it's 正好, 现在正好2点. So now I just learned 2 words in both Chinese and Japanese at the same time. So that's where it could get very useful, I guess, maybe. But again, that would require a lot of repetition and practice, so I wouldn't necessarily remember it or learn it that way, actually. 不是5点05分. So 5時5分ではありません. ではありません. How often do they say ではありません? I don't think they ever they say it that often in Japanese. Like that's why I'm learning from a more natural source. I'm actually learning Japanese from a YouTuber, like a native Japanese speaking YouTuber, rather than Duolingo. So I'm probably not going to learn a lot of like the overly textbooky type Japanese. I learn more casual conversation Japanese. So this is where I might struggle if I try to use Duolingo. 18点06分. So 8
時
時6分です. Okay, so that was a little harder, but I made it through it. I skipped ahead, basically. Practice, 练习. Need the 话 means broken. So I'm guessing this means like to practice my areas where I struggle, basically, judging by the few words in the sentence that I know, basically. No, thank you. So yeah, I think we're just about done here, but there's one more thing I want to show. One more thing that I found very interesting. So once again, we're going to go back into courses here. And the last thing I want to show is I'm going to go back to, well, actually, I mean, there's also this too. They also offer Cantonese for for Mandarin speakers. So theoretically, I could also I could start learning Cantonese from here after I'm already fluent in Mandarin, but not going to get very far because the Cantonese course for Mandarin speakers, I'm not even going to do an exercise here. I just want to show, like, this is this is probably the smallest Chinese Duolingo course I've ever seen. It's literally only 18 units. That's it. It basically gets Mandarin speakers started at learning Cantonese, and that's it. It won't get you anywhere near as far as you would with other languages on Duolingo. So I just thought it was interesting to point that out. But also, I wanted to go back into English here. And as you can see at the very, very bottom, Duolingo added a new course not too long ago. Just a few months ago, actually, I think. Or maybe it was late last year. Here it is. An English course for English speakers. No joke. Intermediate English. So, learning English from English. I've never seen any other language where you actually learn the target language in the target language. That's just so weird, but it's a thing. So, I'm going to tell you right now, this course is literally, remember those exercises I did to skip ahead in the Chinese course, the English course for Chinese speakers? It's literally all that for this course. This is not meant for native speaking English, for native English speakers like myself. But theoretically, I think there's a lot of people in America who would benefit from this because there's a lot of people in the US who are not good at English. So theoretically, this could be good for them. And I could also see this being good for like middle school, like elementary school students, sort of. But definitely not. By the time you get in high school, this would not be useful for you anymore. As a native English speaker, I learned pretty much most of my English in elementary and middle school, or even by the time I was in elementary school. I'm not even sure at this point. But a lot of the advanced English words I learned were in my English classes, like language arts studies or whatever. Back when I was in high school, that's where they teach us more complicated, like English, like from William Shakespeare plays or Julius Caesar or whatever. Like just like a lot of those older stories where they use old English basically, and you have to use critical thinking skills to understand what they're meaning basically. But yeah, this course is basically meant for for non-native English learners basically who are already advanced enough in English basically, but they want to practice it to get better essentially. I'm not sure, but either way, it's already a massive course. Like, look at this. See, it's 175 units across 4 sections, so it's already a pretty massive course. But like, the English course for Chinese speakers, as we saw, was already pretty big. So, yeah, it's just kind of weird, I guess. I don't know. But either way, we now have a total of 7 courses here. 8 if I count the Cantonese course too as well. So that's 8 Duolingo courses I could potentially take basically, just to learn 2 languages, essentially. So I just wanted to share that with y'all. And I don't know if anyone else has tried this on Duolingo, but if you're one of those people who uses Duolingo and you've tried this as well, like this whole learning your own language from your target language, let me know in the comments below. But anyways, folks, that's all I have for today. This is probably, I don't know how long this video has been going, but I've been recording this video for over 2 hours, basically. There's going to be a lot of cutting, so I don't know how long this is going to be, and I hope it's not too much for people to watch, but like still, I just thought this was very interesting, like all this stuff I wanted to share. That's all I have for this series, basically, unless people want me to actually practice Chinese more, or Japanese, or English, or whatever from the target languages, or even practice Chinese and Japanese between the two. Whatever you want me to do, let me know in the comments below. Otherwise, the series basically ends here. These are the only things I wanted to share. I just wanted to share like these interesting ways of learning languages on Duolingo, basically, like beyond just doing the target language course, basically. So, yeah, let me know if you found these tips very helpful or not at all. I apologize if you didn't, and this felt like a waste of time. I don't know what to say. Anyways, folks, thank you all for watching. Thank you all for sticking with me through this crazy series, and I will, catch you all later. I love language studying just almost as much as I love gaming now, and I'd be very interested to make this into a full series if y'all want me to. Just let me know what you want me to do, whether practice Chinese, Japanese, or practice between the two, not with no English. I'd definitely be interested in doing that too. But for now, folks, that's all. So, again, thank you all so much for watching. I'm just going on now. Bye now.